All right, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about what are some factors that can affect an LBO. And this is a pretty popular question where a lot of bankers will essentially drill down on your answer, right? And what I mean by that is they might ask you, oh, what are some factors that affect an LBO the most, or like affect the internal rate of return on an LBO, or what are some levers that the private equity firm can pull to kind of change the value or the internal rate of return in an LBO, right? And you might give them two or three reasons, and then they'll ask, okay, well, tell us more, right? Or you might give them three reasons and they say, oh, well, tell me a couple more in relation to one of the reasons that you gave, right? So this is one where I would recommend the same kind of approach where you give them two or three reasons at a very high level. And then if they ask for more, you essentially go into more detail, right? So the way that I actually like to think about the factors that affect an LBO, and we've talked about this briefly in some of the other videos, are number one, the entry and exit, right? The second one is capital structure. And the third one is cash flow generation, right? Or you could call it like operational performance or whatever the case is, right? So if a banker asks you, oh, what are some of the factors that affect an LBO? You could say, oh, well, obviously the entry and the exit price, the capital structure in terms of how much leverage they're using, and then how much cash flow they're able to generate, right? And then they might ask you to kind of talk about this a little bit more, right? So under entry and exit, you can say that, oh, if they're able to enter at a lower multiple, right? So a low entry, right? Meaning that they pay less, right? That's a good thing, right? That's going to increase your internal rate of return. Similarly, if they have a high exit, that's also a good thing, right? Then you can also talk about, oh, if they're able to, for example, purchase a company at 10 times EBITDA and they're able to sell it at 11 times EBITDA, right? This is what we call multiple expansion. Expansion, right? That can also have a really, really big effect, right? And these three right here are probably the biggest variables, right? These will have the largest effect on the internal rate of return of an LBO, right? Now let's move on to our capital structure, right? So we obviously know that if we have high debt, right, assuming that we're able to pay for it, right, this is going to increase our internal rate of return, right? The type of debt also matters, right? So I guess like the interest rate on that debt also matters, right? If it's higher, that's going to be more expensive. If it's lower, that's going to be better for you, right? And then if there's any kind of mandatory payments, right, on this debt, right, or some kind of unique thing with the capital structure where one type of debt needs to be paid before the other, irrespective of other variables, right? So mandatory repayments, we'll put this in as, right? Now let's talk about cash flow generation, right? The most basic one here is if they're able to grow EBITDA, right? So EBITDA growth over the period of time, right? So if they're just able to increase that figure as a whole, that would be great, right? And remember, I mean, underneath this, we can talk about the reduction of costs, right? So we can talk about all of the different costs associated with operating the business and say, oh, we could reduce this cost, reduce that cost, right? And of course, we can also talk about increasing revenue, right? So on the cost, we could say that, oh, maybe we're able to reduce our cost of goods sold, we're able to reduce our operating expenses, whatever the case is, right? That's going to lead to more cash flow generation, right? And that's essentially what we're looking at. And of course, if we're able to increase revenue, that would be great, right? Another thing is if you're able to increase your margins, right? That's going to lead to us having more cash flow generation overall. And then if we're able to pay down debt, right? So if we pay our debt down, that's going to lead to us having more equity in an LBO, and that's going to lead to us essentially having a higher internal rate of return in most cases, right? So if a banker asks you this specific question, and there was one specific bank that, at least to like 30, 40 people that I spoke to, they asked this question, and they asked some folks, give me 10 reasons or 10 ways, right? 10 ways that a bank can increase their, or that a private equity firm can increase their internal rate of return. Some people were asked 15 reasons, right? And the way that I would go about it is if they ask for that kind of straight up at the front, then kind of section it out into these three sections and kind of explain each one of the line items to them and kind of repeat the number that you're on, right? At the end of the day, if you're able to give them like 7 ways, you're probably good to go, right? Some people were asked 20 ways, right? They personally asked me what are 20 ways for them to increase the internal rate of return on a LBO, right? And I went through this exact same structure and I pulled maybe like 8 different ways out from here, right? I tried to kind of combine everything else. From the other sections, and I was able to get like decently close, right? I don't think I actually got the 20, but they took that and they were like, oh, okay, that sounds great, right? And I end up getting a super day and an offer from that bank, right? So they're not really looking for actually 20 ways or actually 10 ways. At the end of the day, they kind of want to see that when they put a little bit of pressure on you, are you able to kind of still think on your feet and put together a well-structured response, right? So if your thinking is well-structured and you kind of go through it in this sense, honestly, I believe that you'll be in good shape. So that's a pretty common question. So we'll hop over to the next LBO video.